Britain paraded without two injured world record holders, Coe and Moorcroft. But the clash between Ovett, master of the 1500, and Cram, the gifted youngster, attracted worldwide speculation.
And Cram hits the front very early, followed by Steve Scott. Has he gone too soon? Cram leading. Scott waiting to attack. Pascal 4, Ovett 5. And Cram leading with Scott coming and Oida coming. And Cram has got it. He's 3 yards clear. Cram leading and Scott closes, but he won't catch him. And Cram wins the World Championship. Scott is second, Oida third, Ovett 4 and Pascal 5.
Complete satisfaction for Cram, champion of the Commonwealth, of Europe, and now of the world. A Briton who believes success in racing is more important than records, while Ovett reflects on a tactical disaster. Other big names, too, had a variety of problems, and Keith Connor, one of the world's finest triple jumpers, failed to reach the final.
Now, has he done enough? He's 16 metres and 18, and I think that must mean that Connor has gone and doesn't make the final.
Evelyn Ashford, the world's fastest sprinter, was also in trouble.
This time they go, and Ashford didn't get away too well. On the near side is Gore and Cock in the centre. Ashford trying to make a late run for it, but on the near side, it's well is Gore, and Ashford's full of muscle. As they come through, Gore wins, Cock second, and Evelyn Ashford crashed to the track at the halfway stage, and the world record holder broke down.
Ashford in agony, and so too the mighty Juan Torino of Cuba, a casual qualifier in the 800 who then tripped over the curb and finished in hospital, missing a final in which he might well have confirmed his comeback.
And Elliott's still driving, but Cruz is too strong, and here comes Woolbeck on the outside. He's waited, he's timed it better, and Willie Woolbeck comes home to take the world title. In second place, Truppers. Third was Cruz. Fourth, Elliott.
The Czechoslovakian lady, Kratochvilova, achieved a remarkable double. First the 800, easily, and then a display of awesome power in the 400.
It's still Kratochvilova coming away for her second goal. And it's going to be Czechoslovakia 1 and 2. And the world record has gone.
The technique and speed of this majestic man, Ed Moses, has been one of the joys of watching the 400-metre hurdles.
And Moses is flowing beautifully. Oh, he's bringing gasps from the crowd, and it's a one-man race already. Moses absolutely flying. It's now about the clock. 47.48. He's matched the European record of Harold Schmidt, and he ran half the race with a shoelace under.
Meanwhile, there was plenty of British support, and the girls took silver in the relay.
East Germany leading. In second place, the Soviet Union. Great Britain closing to Shirley Thomas on the Soviet Union. And East Germany win it. Great Britain coming to second place.
A memory for the team to treasure. But these championships gave us so much to remember. A festival in which there was pain, pleasure, despair, delight.
Oh, that's huge! Yes! 1 metre 92, best in Britain this year. Oh, it's going to land flat, I think. Oh, it could get the red flag. Yes, it's raised. All her chances gone. Oh, that's big. The big Grover's won it on the last foot. Oh, yes.
And, of course, there was drama too, especially the Henry Marsh fall at the last barrier in the steeplechase.
Marsh hits the ground and pays for laying off the pace. Hill comes home to win and take the World Championship. In second place, it's Babinski. Reeds of Great Britain is the bronze.
Emotion too in the javelin, with Fatima Whitbread, the unexpected leader, from the very first round.
Oh, and that's an enormous throw, and that's just short of 70 metres for Fatima Whitbread.
The world title now just one throw away, but it's Lilac of Finland, the world record holder.
Oh, she's done it, and Lilac's won the gold. The last throw of the competition.
Mum, the coach, shares the tearful disappointment, and the silver restores the Whitbread smile. Nick Rose and Steve Jones both reached the 10,000 final, but were not involved in the five-man sprint for the line.
But it's Schildau with all that power, holding the curve, and Cover of Italy on the near side, and Cover comes through to win. Schildau's second.
American Mary Decker earned the affection of the fans with a fine piece of front running to win the 3,000, but in the 1,500 she had to reverse the tactics.
The American goal comes again, and again, and again, and the Russian goal goes over. What a magnificent run from Mary Decker.
The first 5,000 metres champion was a popular winner, Eamon Coughlin, and his triumphant glance across on the last bend was the very human reaction of a man who knows he can win at last.
Eamon Coughlin on his way to a major title for the first time in his life. Brilliantly run, the champion of the world.
In the 4x400 relay, the Americans were favourites, but it all went wrong. And that fall meant Britain got the bronze. But gold was the target for Daley Thompson in the decathlon, and although injured, he was spurred on by the attitude of the Germans.
And I met the two German boys, and they weren't talking to me or anything. They were pretending to be really bad and all that kind of stuff. So after I met them that day, I decided that I was going to do it and give them a hell.
Hinkson had recently taken Daley's world record, but Thompson's reaction was explosive.
Oh, yes, that's an enormous put for Daley.
In the hurdles, Thompson was close to a personal best, while in the pole vault, he equalled his best decathlon performance.
Oh, he's clear!
By the time they got round to the 10th and final event, the 1,500 metres, it was a formality.
And he has done enough, and there's our world champion.
Gold again for Thompson, the supreme all-round athlete in the world. Among the British women, Kathy Cook was yet again in the medals.
Rita Cock in lane 7, running brilliantly. Ottie's down on her, and Kathy Cook struggling, but racing for bronze at the moment with Griffith in lane 1. Cock is coming away from Ottie, and Kathy coming through for the bronze. Ottie chases Cock to the line, Kathy gets the bronze, and it's a magnificent run.
Kathy so consistent, and so too is Alan Wells, especially in the big ones. Despite setbacks, he was 4th in both sprints.
It's Calvin Smith there in lane 3, Hamilton the East German, and the Brazilian trying to make up ground. Wells is going quite well, but looking a bit heavy, and also coming through is Elliot Quao. Calvin Smith wins it.
Smith's final collection was 2 golds, 1 silver, and a share in a world record. But even all that was eclipsed by the athlete of the games, Carl Lewis.
And they get away for the 3rd time of asking. Alan Wells had a good start, but Carl Lewis is going well, and Emmett King's ahead of him. Emmett King is streaking ahead. Carl Lewis has got a long run, and Lewis comes. Oh, magnificent, Carl Lewis, magnificent.
The 100 metres gold was followed by gold in the long jump, won with the very first leap.
Oh, it's enormous! It's enormous!
Elation, and Sister Carol knows that won't be beaten. Gold at number 2. And on to the sprint relay, with Mum and Dad overlooking Carl's takeover point on the final leg.
And the big man has the baton, and Russ is on his inside, but Carl Lewis flying. Italy in the hunt. The silver, 37.86, and Mum says it all. And another world record goes down in the book. 3 world titles and a world record.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from New York, Carl Lewis. Carl, gold at 100, the long jump and the relay and the World Championships. What's the target now for the Olympic Games?
Well, for me, I think that I just have to train and do the same things I did last year, and hopefully I can add the 200 meters to all the events, because I do feel it's attainable.
So you'll go for all 4 events?
Well, if things are going well in my training and if I feel comfortable, I will try for all events.
Now, how much of your success is due to natural ability, how much to hard work?
Well, I think there's a certain bit of natural ability you're born with. Everyone has the talent, excuse me, physical attributes are there, but then there's a spiritual aspect, and I believe in God, and I believe in a lot of things that I do. And then there's a lot of hard work that's acquired. So there are really three main aspects: the spiritual part, the physical part, and then just the hard work.
Now, athletes can be paid through trust funds and collect the money at the end of their careers. Has it made any difference to your ability to remain in the sport?
Well, I think it's made a difference to my ability, and more so a lot of the other athletes, especially Americans, because the money that it can earn is enabling them to stay in the sport and not have to work out and seek jobs and do different things in order to keep alive as an amateur athlete. I think it's going to help the sport, and I think it's going to help track and field in general.
You are reported to be the highest paid athlete in the sport. Do you think that's true?
Well, I don't know. If I am, I really, I hate to see some of the other athletes.
Obviously received tremendous support from your family. Sister Carol, who's an international long jumper herself, and your mother and father, they are very involved, aren't they?
Yes, my family's very involved, and for them to be in Helsinki with me and Carol, I think was a big motivator for both of us. We were able to do very well, and my parents are special, just like everyone's parents, and for them to be there, it just makes it even better.
Now, I know you're in New York because tomorrow you get a special award as one of the American Men of the Year. But we've got a surprise for you now, because you've won, Carl, the special BBC award for the Outstanding Overseas Sportsman of the Year. Now, if you turn to your right, we've got another surprise for you, because here to make the presentation, your mother and your father.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Congratulations, Carl. We are so pleased that PB Sports will allow us to share this very special moment with you, and we're very proud to present to you the International Sportsman of the Year.
Thanks.
Or BBC.
Well, I'm just glad that I'm able to receive this award. Number one, to be recognized as an athlete in the United States, but overall to be recognized as a great athlete and a great person throughout the entire world makes it even more special.
And of course, you knew nothing about Mum and Dad being there, did you?
No, I didn't at all.
Okay, congratulations. The Outstanding Overseas Sportsman of the Year, Carl Lewis. You know, the name of Geoffrey Boycott has never been out of the cricket headlines in 1983, and his wrangle with Yorkshire goes on. And as the year began, England's fortunes were in the doldrums too. They returned from Australia, minus the Ashes. But for Bob Willis and his men, there were hopes for redemption come the summer. The World Cup, the game's premier one-day competition, promised to be a sparkling affair. But it certainly turned out that way too. But by heavens, there were a few surprises.
8 nations took part and no passengers, not even Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka, but could any of them topple Clive Lloyd's West Indies, bristling with fast bowlers and winners of the 2 previous cups? Against Sri Lanka, David Garr was in majestic form.
Oh, many a mile into the pavilion and past it.
Not a bad way to reach 100, and on the same day, not a bad catch by Ian Botham.
And that's a magnificent catch. We won't really see many better catches than that, Leighton.
Apart from one defeat by New Zealand, England moved serenely into the semi-finals against India at Old Trafford, and it seemed to be going their way at first.
Getting that away through the gap on the offside. The outfield pretty quick. 50 up.
But on a dead slow pitch, the wicket started to fall.
And he's bowled him all over the place.
Suddenly, everything went wrong for England.
And Lamb, that's out!
The underestimated Indians steadily took control of the match, and England's total of 213 never looked enough.
He's hit that high, and is it 6? Has it cleared the rope? Yes, it has.
Suddenly, Kapil Dev's team of opportunists were on the verge of a place in the final.
He can hit it anywhere. That's it.
Jubilation for India and their many supporters. Their opponents at Lord's in the final were the West Indies, who'd beaten Pakistan in the other semi-final. Srikant offered some resistance.
Getting away again, and that's a beautiful straight.
But India looked doomed when their charismatic captain Kapil was caught in the deep. India's total of just 183 seemed likely to be quickly swept away, especially as Viv Richards looked capable of winning the match on his own.
Well, that was a cheeky shot.
But perhaps the great man was just a little too confident.
Shot.
Not so good. Beautifully caught.
It was the start of an astonishing collapse.
He's gone. Lloyd is caught. The West Indies in total disarray now.
And he's pulled it on. That's the wicket they're desperately needed. And that's out. Yes, it's all over this time.
Incredibly, India had won the World Cup. Their supporters knew how to celebrate, and so did the players, a triumph all the sweeter for its unexpectedness.
In the tests against New Zealand, delight for Bob Willis as his side opened with a win. But in the second test, Lance Cairns struck back with 7 for 74 and some powerful hitting.
That's in the air, and it's well over the top. Oh, he's a great hitter, this fellow.
Not even David Gower's unbeaten 112 could save his side, nor could Bob Willis's 300th test wicket.
And he's bowled him, and a historic moment for Bob Willis.
And an historic moment for New Zealand as they moved to a 5-wicket win.
And that's it.
Their first ever test win in England ended a 52-year wait. All square then going to Lord's, but on the first morning, that match winner Cairns became the match loser.
Good heavens.
David Gower went on to a match-winning century, and Cairns now knew the other side of the coin. At Trent Bridge in the 4th test, Botham was back.
A beautifully unorthodox stroke to bring up his 100.
Botham steered England to an easy win, and the series was won by 3 tests to 1. There was success for Botham too when he lifted the NatWest Trophy for Somerset. Yorkshire took the John Player Sunday League. Essex took the County Championship, consolation for defeat by Middlesex in the Benson and Hedges final. Graham Gooch's dismissal in that match for 46, a thrilling innings, triggered off an amazing collapse when the last 5 Essex wickets fell for 7 runs.
And those are more optimistic than ever. And I think it might be out. Yes, he's got out, run out. Oh, what a circus this is turning out to be. And he's gone, he's bowled him, and it's all over at Middlesex have won.
Well, now, the cricket buffs amongst you would probably be able to tell me that England's cricket captain way back in 1929 was a man called White. Well, in that far-off year, Henry Seagrave was pushing the world land speed record to, at the time, the preposterous speed of 231 miles an hour. And Britain continued to play a leading role in extending those frontiers of speed. The names of Sir Malcolm Campbell and his son Donald will forever be associated with the record. More recently, the Americans had taken over, but this year, the record came back to Britain again. The car Thrust 2, British designed, built, sponsored and driven. Powered by a 15,000 horsepower jet fighter engine, it hurtled across America's Black Rock Desert at an average speed over 2 runs of 633.468 miles an hour. £1.5 million had been spent in the realization of a 9-year-old dream. Well, the man in the hot seat with cause for celebration joins us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the fastest man on earth, Richard Noble. Pretty magnificent beast, Richard. You can get out all right. You don't normally wear a suit in there. No. I noticed, though, you're not wearing your socks. Why is that?
Well, we have a rule that nobody actually ever wears shoes in Thrust. We take the dust if we see otherwise.
How far had the money run out? How...
It got very, very close. We needed another £20,000 to keep us going for that last week, and we actually had just 1 day in which to do it.
Really? Just in time?
Just in time.
What possessed you in the first place? How did you get involved in this?
Oh, I just love this.
Just as simple as that. But why did you do it?
Well, there comes a time, I suppose, when you feel, you know, you've just got to have a
You
go.
must break the land
And
speed
otherwise
record.
you're going to spend the rest of your life.
Let's take a look at this, this car now. If we can just have a look in here, and perhaps you could point out a few of the things to us. I can't see a clutch or anything like that.
It's driven just like an automatic car. The right foot works the accelerator, left foot works the brake. On the steering wheel...
The brake, of course, being
the wheel brake.
special.
But on here, you've got the buttons which fire the parachutes.
Yeah.
And I can't get that off them. And those, of course, are the brakes. And you can lose speed very rapidly from 650 miles an hour with those. What you like there is, in the middle, is the 0 to 800 mile an hour speedometer.
Give me an idea. I mean, most people know about 0 to 60. What does this do in 0 to 60
Well, we're
terms?
pulling about 2 G, so that's 0 to 44 miles an hour in 1 second, 0 to 88 in 2, 0 to 122.
It'd be quite quick coming down the M4, wouldn't
Well,
it?
yeah, we do the trouble, yes.
Do you get a chance at all to have a look at that speedo when you're in there? I mean...
Oh, yes, yes.
Or does
so
it just go by you?
Watching it the whole way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what sort of impression of speed would you have while you're breaking the record? I mean, there aren't too many trees in the desert, are there?
Well, it is amazing, actually, because there are a lot of marks on the track, and I can still remember on the second run of the day, there was a track where the timekeepers had driven across our track. I could actually see the wheel marks come up and go under the car at 640.
Let's take a look at the rest of it. It's got tyres on tonight,
Yes.
hasn't it? Now, when you did the record, of course, there was no rubber.
That's right. We were using solid aluminium wheels. Well, we were a bit concerned about your floor here today, you see, so we're using just the rubber tyres.
Yeah.
And then here at the back we've got the parachutes. This is the parachute that can be streamed at up to 650 miles an hour. And it comes out with a reverse yank, reverse pull of up to 12 tons on that nylon.
Any hairy moments in the build-up to the...
We've had a few. We had the famous crash in 1982 when I drove it a little bit too fast. And we had to put it sideways at about 180 at the end of the runway.
Sideways at 180?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It took us 9 weeks to rebuild it.
But you didn't need rebuilding, thank heavens. Let's have a look at the burner here now. Tell us about that.
That's the afterburner. Well, basically, we boost the output from the jet engine by spraying neat fuel in there. And when she's running flat out, the flame is about 30 feet long from the back, so it's actually longer than the car itself.
And that is actually a fighter engine, isn't
Yes, it comes from a Lightning F6 fighter, which goes twice the speed of sound, but we've actually souped it up a little bit more, so run hotter and faster than they do.
They are a bit sluggish, those fighter
Oh, that's right. Difficult getting off the ground.
Until you soup them up. Now, I believe your good lady's looking in tonight.
Yes, unfortunately she's ill, but she is looking in, yes.
Right, well, you can look in there now and just tell her, and tell us, as a matter of fact, are you going to do it again?
Well, this is always a very difficult one, actually. I'd love dearly to get another project together to perhaps beat whatever record the Americans are able to beat ours with. But I've promised her very sincerely I'm never going to drive one of these again.
Ladies and gentlemen, a thrust to Richard Noble.
Richard Noble, who's put his country ahead of the world. But for some years now, in two sports, tennis and golf, we've lacked a competitor we felt could confidently take on the world. But in '83, we found one in both sports. Nick Faldo put together 5 tournament wins, was leading money winner on the European circuit, and made a remarkable challenge in the Open. And in tennis, we have at last a young lady well fitted to don the mantle put aside by Virginia Wade. Jo Dury won 2 events in 1983, together with some £150,000 in prize money, to lift herself quite dramatically in the world rankings. It was a fine year for Jo Dury. She got to the semi-finals of the French Open, and then in September at Flushing Meadow, she faced Chris Lloyd in the semi-finals of the American Open. There were moments when she seemed inspired.
Oh, that's a dream of a shot.
The experience of Mrs. Lloyd told in the end, but Miss Dury had served notice. She was a threat to anyone. At Wimbledon, Mrs. Lloyd, seeking the Grand Slam, met defeat unexpectedly early. In the third round, Kathy Jordan at the far end, ranked only 13th in the States, had a few tricks too many.
Well played.
A disappointing Wimbledon for one favourite. But Virginia Wade played well to reach the quarterfinals. And Billie Jean did even better. She made the semis. But Martina was the star. Defending her title, she never dropped a set on her inevitable way to the final.
Oh, yes.
And in that final, she played the American teenager Andrea Jaeger, just 18. Andrea had her moments and always bubbled with fun.
Yes.
But Miss Navratilova was just too good.
Game, set, attack, that's it.
And with her fourth Wimbledon title went the US and Australian championships as well. In the mixed doubles, John Lloyd and Wendy Turnbull had a happy triumph. John became the first British man to win a Wimbledon title since Fred Perry. Jimmy Connors made an early exit, none too graciously. John McEnroe bowed a farewell. McEnroe's semi-final with Lendl was a classic on paper, but in practice, McEnroe's athletic brilliance simply outshone the Czech. He won in straight sets. But Chris Lewis of New Zealand stole the show. Unseeded, he was in the semi-final against Kevin Curran, the man who'd beaten Connors. What a match they had. Curran at the far end.
Oh, he's got it over.
It went on like that for nearly 4 hours. Lewis won in 5 sets, and now, ranked 91st in the world, he was in the final with McEnroe. But this was a different story. And so McEnroe, at the far end, serves for the championship.
That's it.
The title he'd last won in 1981 was his again.
Arnold Palmer and Seve Ballesteros drawn against each other in the first round of the 20th World Match Play Championship. And as usual, it was Seve that played the shot of the week.
He pitched it just short of the green, and he looks to have got the pace to perfection.
Well, Seve beat Palmer, but he wasn't destined to reach the final. Nick Faldo, on the other hand, in his first-round match against Graham Marsh, was making headlines also. Entirely the innocent party in this incident.
He played it very well, but you see, you can't really get any control over it, and that should go over and through. No.
And with help he didn't want, Faldo reached the final to play young Australian Greg Norman. But for Nick, the bubble had burst. This long putt to stay in the match. It was over, and Greg Norman had won by 3 and 2, and with a handsome first prize, was able to present the ball to a young fan. The Ryder Cup. Could the mighty Americans be beaten at home? The final day, the match all square. Could the impossible dream come true?
What a shot. Ian, look at this. Look at this.
Oh, Sam Torres gave us hope. Lanny Watkins snatched it away again.
And he's done it.
Indeed he had, and a very relieved Jack Nicklaus kisses the ground that Watkins played from. And the Europeans had lost by just 1 point. The Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, and again the Americans were to dominate it. On the first day, Bill Rogers gave us a lot of excitement. How's this for a long iron?
Almost looks like the American shuttle coming back into orbit. And that's a really wonderful shot. Oh! A very rare beast indeed, an albatross too.
Arnold Palmer at the same hole, now into his 50s and still thrilling the crowds and not wanting to be upstaged.
Oh, come on now. Please the gallery. Please the gallery. Get in, Bob. Get in.
Ah, Arnold Palmer. But the leader for the first 2 days was a rather unfamiliar figure, Craig Stadler.
Very quick and brisk, and it's running at the hole. It can no, I say no.
But by the third day, the walrus had floundered, and the lead had been taken over by the defending champion, Tom Watson. British hopes for this championship rested on Nick Faldo's shoulders. He dropped a stroke at the first, here he is at the second. Now his second shot to the third.
And look at this baby.
A putt at the fourth to jointly take the lead. But it wasn't to be Nick's year. Graham Marsh might have thought it was going to be his, a round of 64 and in early. But plenty of others were chasing him hard, and a playoff looked likely. Andy Bean played brilliantly on that last day. But how well Hale Owen will remember this little mistake from the third round. An air shot from about an inch, which certainly cost him a playoff with this man, Watson. Watson's putt at the 16th to go into the lead with just 2 holes to play. Was this to be the setting for Tom Watson's first championship victory in England?
Look at that. Those are the shots that champions are made of, my word.
And champion for the 5th time.
The defending champion wins again.
So the Open Championship Trophy and the Ryder Cup remain in America, and their amateurs won the Walker Cup as well. Difficult to beat the Americans. And in yachting, the America's Cup for 132 years had remained the most appropriately named prize in sport. Only the Americans had ever won it. Now, I must admit, 12-metre yachting isn't the sort of thing you normally hear discussed down the pub, but this was the year it captured the imagination of the world. Australia, too, had overwhelmed Britain's Victory 83 to reach the challenge round. By then, controversy raged over her revolutionary winged keel. The Americans were crying foul, but for a time it looked like the old story. Liberty, the defender, skippered by Dennis Conner, sailed into a 3-1 lead. They needed to win just one further race. The Australians were virtually written off, but brilliant seamanship by their skipper John Bertrand, backed by superb organisation, gave them the next 2 races, 3-all. Never before had the series gone to a 7th and deciding race. But when it came, the Australians were equal to it. One of the biggest sporting upsets of all time had taken place. A mere 41 seconds had decided it. Liberty and the Americans were beaten. The seemingly immovable object, the America's Cup, had met the irresistible force. And that irresistible force, ladies and gentlemen, he's come all the way from down under to be with us tonight, Alan Bond. To have you here. I suppose if your life circumstances had been just a little bit different, you might have actually brought the America's Cup home to us, mightn't you?
Well, it could have been that way. I did leave England in 1951, so I suppose we can call it the Commonwealth Cup if you like.
You were actually born here?
Yes, I was.
But you've been chasing that America's Cup for a long time, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It's been a 13-year event and 4 challenges and a lot of hard work to get there.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were 3-1 down this time. At that, I know you're a confident guy, but at that particular time, did you think that it had gone away from you again? It was the 4th time unlucky?
No, not really. I believed that we had the crew, the equipment and the training had been put in for this team to win it. Mm-hmm. And I said to the guys at the breakfast when we were 3-1 down, this is like winning from behind. And the Americans are not going to give you this cup. We've got to go out and win it today because each race was separate.
You mentioned several things there, several qualities, but if there was one sort of key issue that made this a successful team as opposed to the 3 previous, what do you think that might be?
Well, I think that the team started out a team of champions and ended up a champion team. Mm-hmm. It was the men. There was 30 in the team, and we put them together very carefully, and they fielded a fantastic personal best effort to win this cup.
Well, Alan, you mentioned team effort there, an amazing team effort in actual fact. Well, the boat itself has become a symbol of Australian success, and our story tonight wouldn't be complete without it. Wherever it goes, people line the streets these days to see it go by, and it has to be pretty well protected. Now, at this very moment, it's early morning in Sydney, and we've tracked the boat down to the very shed where the famous keel was actually designed. And I think we can now see Australia 2 and her crew, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there are the boys, Alan. They're looking pretty shipshape, aren't they?
Well, I know Jim Hardy's sitting there. It's not usually you're seeing Jim without a glass of wine in his hand and saying some controversial thing about getting the crew on target for the day's effort.
Now, where's Ben Lexon? Is he there?
No, I can't see Ben. Where are you, Ben? You in that group there somewhere?
Ah, there's Ben. Look, all waiting for us up there. Now, your old sparring partners, how did you get together? Because you were sort of a team from way back, weren't you?
Sure. I recognised that Ben had a great amount of ability. Wasn't quite sure what he was going to turn up, whether it was going to be a yacht, a dustpan, or a dustbin, or whatever it was, but it turned out to be the keel that won the cup. How are you, Ben?
I'm great, Al.
Thanks, Ben. Now, Ben Lexon is, of course, the guy who designed that revolutionary keel. Ben, how did you come up with that idea in the first place? Was that an idea from a long time ago, or was it a fairly recent manoeuvre?
Well, Des, I have a fertile mind, I'm told, and this keel just grew in there.
Really? And was it an immediately accepted idea, I wonder, or did it take time?
Well, the first person to really accept it was Alan. I think there was a little bit of head scratching from the other members of the team, and they didn't tell me this, but now they do. And it wasn't accepted really well by the Americans after it started to go fast.
I understand you had a piece of apparatus that actually allowed you to look down at that keel during racing. Is that right? A sort of periscope the other way round kind of thing?
Yes, we had what in the medical profession is known as an epidioscope. I think that's what it's called, but normally you stick it down people's cake holes and you can see what's happening inside them.
Has he got that right?
I'm not too sure about that Ben, but...
Can you translate that? I'm trying to use the British idiom.
Now, let's have a look at the guys again. I mean, is Colin Beashall there? Is he the man who had to go up the mast when things went wrong? Can you spot him there for us, Alan?
No, I can't see Beach there. I can see Brownie there, and he was always running around the fore deck. How you going, Brownie?
Pretty good, thanks, Alan.
Now, what about these guys? Because I understand that you got them pretty physically fit in the build-up to the racing, too. It wasn't just let's turn up, we're all experienced yachtsmen, was it? I mean, the early mornings were quite important, weren't they?
Hey, we had a pretty hard routine, and we'd start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it didn't really matter what the standard of fitness you were. Yeah. You turned out there at 6 o'clock, and we had one group called the Geriatrics, and Jim led that, and but that went on for a while, and needless to say, some of the young guys run 5 or 6 miles and do a couple of hundred press-ups just to get their mind right for the day's seminar, which took place at the breakfast.
I think they've lost a little shape, don't you, since you lost control of them. Let's move across now and see that immovable object that you so wonderfully moved. The America's Cup itself. It's there in Perth. Nice sight for you.
It certainly is.
And more of the crew there, smiling heartily. Now, who's the lady there?
Oh, that's Leslie Green and Alison Baker. Leslie Green handled all the public relations, and we know how that worked out. And with Warren Jones' personal direction, she put the words out.
Yes, I can see that lady's forte is PR. Now, is Warren Jones there? Should we just have a quick word with Warren? Warren, is that Warren at the back?
Yeah, well, no, Warren's sitting on the left hand. How you going, Jonesy?
I got the cup, Bondi.
Now, Warren had to fight all those battles off the water, as it were, with the Americans. Was that tough, Warren?
Oh, not really. We've been fighting battles with them for 10 years, and we kind of get used to it, I think, Des.
Good. Well, splendid. It's good to see you. I want you all to stay there with us just for a moment, both in Sydney and in Perth. I've got one last question for you, Alan. You're going to defend it in 3 years' time?
Certainly I am, and we're hoping that the rest of the world will come to Perth and be a part of this fantastic event, which is the ultimate in sailing, match racing that you can get.
Well, Alan, for the impact you and your team have made in sport worldwide, we have a special award tonight, our BBC International Team Trophy. And here to present it is your old rival, leader of Britain's Victory 83 team, Peter de Savary.
Alan, congratulations from everybody in Britain on a wonderful victory this summer, and to your marvellous team members down there in Australia, I think, who made it all possible. I should say we're busy here in England designing a new yacht. Hopefully it'll be a winner next time. And better still, chaps, Alan and I have had some talks today that perhaps Bond Corporation will sponsor the next British Challenge in '87 to relieve you of the responsibility of the America's Cup. But in any event, it gives us all great pleasure to present you with the BBC's International Team Trophy for 1983.
Well done. Thank you very much, Peter. Well done. Yeah. I'd like to accept this trophy on behalf of the team. This is a 30-man team with 2 ladies present, and I can assure you, Peter, that Swan Lager will be happy to be one of your sponsors, and as we sell some of that in England too. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Alan.
Well, they've got the Brewers sorted out. Now, National Hunt Racing over the years has produced some great characters for this programme, the 4-legged sort like Red Rum, who was here just a few years ago. And there was Bob Champion, winning that emotional battle with sport and with life. Last year, we had the Grand National's oldest winning jockey and the first lady rider to complete the Aintree course. 1983 gave us memorable performances by horses and riders again. John Frankham was champion jockey. But it was a year when the spotlight fell on the trainers. Aintree and Cheltenham were the scenes of their historic achievements.
It was a year when 33-year-old Michael Dickinson quite simply beat every record in the book.
Coming to the final fence now, it's going to be an unprecedented Michael Dickinson quartet if they all jump the last fence. Brigon lands over it, Captain John second, then Wayward Lad racing into the closing stages. Brigon being pressed now by Captain John. Brigon striding up to the line to win it. Brigon wins the Gold Cup, second is Captain John, and third is Wayward Lad, and fourth is going to be Silverbuck. An amazing 1, 2, 3, 4 for the Michael Dickinson quartet, and he's going to achieve the 5th because Ashley House runs on to be 5th.
Mercy Rymel also made history as the first woman trainer to win the champion hurdle. While at Aintree, it was Jenny Pitman who was centre stage.
Foot hard on the accelerator, flat down until you get to the Melling Road, and then just ease back a little bit off the throttle.
Corbiere was Jenny Pitman's #1, happily escaping the annual melee at the first fence, where victims included Geraldine Rees and an athletic Richard Rowe. The chair, too, claimed its share of victims. By second beaches, the white-faced Corbiere was starting to take control of the race.
Corbiere from Greasepaint putting in a tremendous run for Ireland, ridden by Mr. Colin Magnier. It's Greasepaint on the near side, beginning to get up as they race towards the line. It's Corbiere from Greasepaint, and Corbiere's won it. Corbiere's the winner from Greasepaint.
In a man's world, it was a notable first for Jenny.
Honestly, I think I'm dreaming, I really do. I really don't think it's real.
If that was a dream, the disappearance of Shergar was a ghastly nightmare, still unsolved. On Derby Day, after an early scare with the course flooded, it was ultimately business as usual.
Leicester has it in the back. 5 lengths clear on Chinozo. No danger. 25 yards to run. Leicester Piggott, #9.
And that left Piggott just 1 short of the all-time record of classic wins. Another veteran, Joe Mercer, won the King George.
Time Charter still coming now strongly on the stand side. Time Charter with the advantage now on the stand side from Diamond Soul between horses from Princess. Time Charter with the advantage as they race towards the line. Joe Mercer's going to win it. And up the line, Time Charter wins it.
Joe Mercer at 48, still supreme. Willie Carson at 40 easily regained his jockey's title, while the brilliant Habibti was decisively Horse of the Year. But the Arc de Triomphe was one race that eluded Carson, riding Sun Princess.
Racing up towards the line, and it's Sun Princess of Stanera with all along coming but Lynam. It's all along coming to take it up now over on the far side. Luthor Chonky on the near side up the line. All along it's running.
And little wonder that Walter Swinburne looked bemused. Incredibly, it was a ride turned down by Leicester Piggott.
Now, just before we move on, do you know who this man is? Well, he's Alan Jones, and he's the coach to Joe Dury, and as we've heard, she's given him plenty to talk about this year. Now, Alan here, as you'll see, works well with women.
As a youngster, she had a very, very heavy weight of shot off the ground, but unfortunately didn't move well enough to take advantage of it. So we've tried to slow down the pace of shot and try to think in terms of getting more rhythm and more movement and more flexibility. And that's paying. That is probably what you saw in the French. But now we have to definitely work on the serve and volley game.
She can certainly chew, can't she? Never work with kids, they say. Now, how about this for an outline?
Well, as I said earlier, I feel that from the age of 24 to 28...
I want to go to the toilet.
Some lady. What's your daughter's name?
Laura.
Laura. Well, she's a lovely lady. Very nice indeed. We surprised him a little bit with that because he didn't know we were going to do it. He said, I haven't got to make a speech or anything, have I? Well, she did it for him. Well, in rugby union, the winds of change threatened in 1983, but so far, professionalism and a World Cup competition have been blown aside. There were serious indications, though, that in future the strengths in the game won't just remain with the old powers. Romania beating Wales. How long before the Five Nations Championship becomes 6? For 1983, though, that international club still remained exclusive.
A new look Murrayfield, but no special favours for Scotland as they lost to Ireland on the opening day of the championship.
It's a good ball again for McGrath, to Campbell, to Irwin. On the burst, well, it's Mosfin. Chips through. The try for Michael Kiernan.
A month later, against France, it was the Irish pack that held the aces, but Campbell and Finn who played the winning hand.
Back once again from the back. McGrath looks for a way through. Campbell linked. A chance now as the overlap has put Niels in the line, and it's up to Finn for a try. One to remember forever in the day.
It was the Calcutta Cup that decided the wooden spoon, and for Scotland, a rare triumph at Twickenham.
A quick one down channel one. Roy Laidlaw goes wide. Laidlaw going clear. Can he make the line? A brilliant try by the Scottish scrum half.
The decider, though, was in Paris. No showpiece this, but instead a full-blooded encounter between Jean-Pierre Rives' France and Wales. France won, courtesy of Estève.
Campbell there, done Mr. Belascar to Blanco. And on the overlap is Estève. A brilliantly executed try.
The same day, Ireland and Ollie Campbell claimed their share of the spoils by rounding off England's dismal season.
That's a lovely kick on by McGrath. On goes Ringland. Ringland, can he hold it? Knocked back by Winterbob, and Campbell may have got the try.
That Irish win ensured that Kieran Fitzgerald would lead the Lions on tour in New Zealand. But sadly, the British couldn't take up the All Blacks' challenge. And they were 2 tests down before they even looked threatening. Nor was that enough, and in completing a whitewash, the All Blacks put the Lions to rout in the 4th test. 6 tries, including a hat-trick by Wilson.
Mary with the chip through for Hugh Wilson. Wilson it has. Wilson the try.
4 months later, the All Blacks were back in Britain. And at Murrayfield, Scotland gave New Zealand, who'd never lost to a Scottish team, the fright of their lives.
So here's a chance for Scotland in the dying minutes of the game. Rutherford. Johnston. That's a beautifully placed ball. Pollock with a chance. Pollock's there for the try. The score's a level.
A 25-all draw. But a week later, England went one better.
England drive to the line. Still in possession, Bainbridge. Still has it. The try for England. Morris Colclough.
A first win at home over New Zealand since 1936. And Peter Wheeler, captain at last, the hero of the day.
In Rugby League's Challenge Cup final, hot favourites Hull took an expected early lead. But their coach Arthur Bunting had cause for anxiety when tiny Featherstone Rovers fought back.
Gary Siddall, hanking again. Oh, and a good ball to Hobbs. Oh, he's going for the line, and he's over.
Rovers kept up the pressure and with 3 minutes to go, got their reward.
Seconds ticking away. The Challenge Cup to be settled here. And it is!
Featherstone had achieved the greatest Challenge Cup upset in 50 years. You know, I've got a theory that people become really famous when their surnames will do. Zatopek, Bradman, Borg, and now Torvill and Dean. Last year, they won their 2nd World Ice Dance title with their remarkable interpretation of the musical Mac and Mabel. Even then, the critics were running out of superlatives for them. Could they get even better? Where could they go for their inspiration this year? Well, they went to the world of the circus and to Barnum. A capacity crowd in Helsinki, Finland already knew that here were the world champions once again. The victory may have been predictable, but the marks were unprecedented.
And just look at that. 9-6 marks.
Well, pleasing to say the least, Jane. It was a terrific year for you, but you missed out on one thing, I know, which was the European Championships. Now, refresh our memory why that was.
Well, about 3 weeks before, we were experimenting with the new lift, and it just didn't work, and we took a terrible fall, and I injured my shoulder, and that put us out for the European Championships. So we decided to really concentrate and get ourselves fit for the World Championships.
Are you trying to tell me he dropped you?
Yes, he did.
Have you had many injuries over the years with that sort of thing?
Not really. We've been very lucky, touch wood. That's the first thing that's actually kept us out of competing.
Chris, despite all your magnificent success, it's always back to the drawing board for you every year, isn't it? I mean, you're not content with the amazing things you do one year. You come up with a whole new ball game for next year. Now, this time, you've come up with Ravel's Bolero. Now, I wonder what made you come up with that?
I don't know. People have been asking us, and I don't know why we came up with it. It seems a catchy piece of music, I think. And when we sat down and thought about it, the more and more it became appealing.
Well, we've had a glimpse of it already. Is it a new departure for you, really? Because it doesn't have sort of changes in tempo like perhaps Barnum.
Yes, it's a different idea again. Each year we've tried to be original in what we're trying to do. And we felt that this was an original piece for us as well.
I reckon you might do your shoulder again with that one, you know. Anyway, for the sheer delight you've both given us over this last year, there's another first for you tonight. You're the first to win our British Team Award for the second time, and of course, it's the second time running for you. And here to present it, he celebrated 25 years of commentating on World Ice Skating Championships this year, Alan Weeks.
Jane and Chris, you've set new standards in presentation, in artistic brilliance, together with tremendous ice skating itself. And one knows that when one's moving around the ice, you've got to be in absolute perfect harmony, and perfect teamwork is required. It therefore gives me the greatest of pleasure to present you with this award, the Outstanding Sports Team of the Year of 1983, Jane Torville and Christopher Dean.
Jane and Chris, of course, contenders for our Sports Personality Trophy as well. Now, in boxing, 3 Britons challenged for world titles, while several others were not far off. It all started in February in Worcester, Massachusetts, where middleweight Tony Simpson from Leicester, England, took on perhaps the most feared man in the world.
Outside the arena, snow paralysed the city. Inside, this hard, ferocious world champion haggler was paralysing Simpson, slowly and surely. Tony worked hard but got nowhere. By the 6th, he was cut and tired.
Tremendous efforts by Simpson. But he's coming off first and he's over again. And this might be the end. His legs seem to have gone. He's put it all in and it hasn't worked. And it stops and it's over. And Hagler has retained the middleweight championship of the world.
Marvin Hagler, undisputed king of the middleweights. A month later in Reno, Nevada, blonde Welshman Colin Jones very nearly won the world welterweight title against Milt McCrory.
The resistance is running up from McCrory. The 9th round. Can Jones do it in the 9th?
But the Americans survived. They went the full 12 rounds, and then Jones discovered just how close he'd come.
It's a draw! My word, it's a draw!
In August, they met again in searing heat in Las Vegas. This time, there was a first-round shock for Colin.
Oh, there's the left and he's over. First time in his professional career and Jones is on the floor.
It still went all the way, but McCrory got the nod. Jones must try again. Charlie Magri made it at last. In his 7th year as a pro, he came good at Wembley against Elioncio Mercedes.
That's a fine attack by Magri. Tremendous attack by the challenger.
Now, it's the 7th round.
And the referee is calling the doctor to have a look at it. He can't go on. And Britain has the world flyweight champion.
But September came, and the Filipino, Frank Cedeno, took away Charlie's crown.
There's still 45 seconds of this round. He's down for the 3rd time, and that's about as much as he ought to be allowed to take.
He'd been champion just 6 months. In Belfast, a new star was born, 22-year-old featherweight Barry Mcguigan. In November, he unleashed a blistering attack on the hapless Italian Valerio Nati to become champion of Europe. Mcguigan and light middleweight Harold Graham are currently our only European champions. On went the Black Bomber, Frank Bruno. 10 fights this year, 10 victims, among them Eddie Nielsen.
Nielsen, a big man, but crouching over and taken with a right hand early in the 3rd.
And in Chicago, the American, Mike Jameson.
That was a left hook and it's taken everything out of Jameson.
But at the Royal Albert Hall, Floyd Cummings hit back.
Oh, what a good right hand right on the balance. Oh, Bruno's gone. He's gone. He's out on his feet.
That was the 1st round. Somehow Bruno survived, and by the 7th, it was the American in trouble.
He's got it. First knockdown. And Bruno is the hero of the night and of the year.
Well, Big Frank will have that world title in his sights in the not-too-distant future, we hope. But now to those who made it to the summit of their sport and became world champions of 1983. Keith Deller, a 66-1 outsider at the start, destroyed the big names to become world professional darts champion.
Double 12 for the title.
In canoeing, there were team and pairs world titles, plus an individual gold for Richard Fox. Liz Sharman from Suffolk also became a world champion in Italy this year. There was a spot more horsepower available to Ted Tolman as he smashed the powerboat world speed record. And Bob Sutherland became the world #1 in indoor bowls.
Oh, he looks to be close with this. If he gets back, he's got it. Yes, that's it.
The World Snooker Championship produced its first ever maximum break, but the foundation on which Cliff Thorburn built it looked a little fragile. But then everything else stopped as 34 shots later, Thorburn needed only the final black.
Oh, good luck, mate.
Oh, wonderful. That is really, truly wonderful. 18,000 quid. And good luck, Cliff.
In the final, though, Thorburn would meet Steve Davis, back to his sparkling best in '83. The clinical skills of Davis accounted for one big name after another as he regained the world title he'd previously won in 1981.
It's all over. Steve Davis then continues his tapestry of titles by becoming World Snooker Champion of 1983.
Well, Steve, would you consider that '83 has been your best year so far?
I think it's been a good year. I don't think it's been my best year, but it was nice to win the title back again to prove that it wasn't just a one-day wonder.
Of course, you're hardly playing snooker at all these days, are you? I mean, you're in the telly business, really.
We've just been to Belgium. They're interested in the game now, so I think it might be going to Europe.
Are they?
Yeah.
But going back to the TV thing, are you enjoying it, the front?
That's great fun, yes. It's nice with the questions in front of you. You know the answers. I'm used to some questions as well.
You know the answers on the snooker table, and Cliff Thorburn certainly did this year too. Can I ask you, would you have traded that maximum break for the title itself, to win the title again, Cliff?
I don't think so, because I do plan on winning the World Championship again, but I'm not sure if I can do what I did during that one frame.
Well, you gave us a great deal of pleasure with it.
Thanks.
Alex Higgins alongside you. The year ended rather nicely for you, Alex, didn't it?
Yeah, it was quiet now, but I like things quiet at Christmas. I like to stay at home. It was quite a nice Christmas, you know.
Any plans for '84? What are your main hopes?
Well,
Another quiet year?
We've got quiet for the first 6 months, you know. I'll try and just behave myself next year.
Yeah, would you please?
I will.
Thanks very much. Well, to those world champions we've already met, let me add a few more who are with us tonight. Speedway's Peter Collins, who along with Kenny Carter won the world pairs title. Chris Buck and Alan Fawcett, doubles champions at 10-pin bowling. Sarah Parker, Teresa Purton, Vicky Sowerby and Wendy Norman, who retained their world modern pentathlon title. And the very latest champion, Wendy Sly, women's world road race champion. Ladies and gentlemen, let's applaud these and many others, our world champions in 1983.
Well, in football, Aberdeen's magnificent triumph overshadowed all other achievements in Europe. But for the first time in years, no English league club qualified for a European final. There was plenty to entertain us at home, however. Liverpool and Manchester United took the honours down south, while Aberdeen and, refreshingly, Dundee United outpaced their rivals north of the border. It was the qualifying matches, though, for the European Championship which provided the story of the year, but sadly, no happy ending.
Alan Simonsen is 31 years old next Thursday, but he won't get too many birthday cards from England. His penalty at Wembley, a few months after his forlorn spell with Charlton, ruined England's chances, and it was Denmark who qualified for next summer's finals when Simonsen scored again in Greece. Scotland failed despite a classic goal.
Away goes Nicholas. He's done it! Oh, brilliantly! Oh, what a goal!
And Northern Ireland missed out after inflicting West Germany's first home defeat by a European nation for 9 years.
And there's Whiteside, and have the incredible Irish done it again?
Not quite. British hopes now depend on Wales, who will need to display form like this in Cardiff next Wednesday if they're to beat Yugoslavia and qualify for France. As usual, Britain did better at club level. Aberdeen made headlines with their European Cup Winners' Cup triumph. Their winning goal against Real Madrid in Gothenburg came in extra time from substitute John Hewitt. A fitting reward for this progressive club and manager Alex Ferguson.
Here
we go, here we go, here we go. Here we go, here we go.
Further evidence that the balance of power in Scottish football has switched to the north was provided by Dundee United, whose championship success with goals like this and subsequent progress to the quarter-finals of the European Cup meant that Rangers couldn't prize away Jim McLean. Managers, it seems, are still the breed who hold football's Aladdin's lamp.
And the one with the least pretensions achieved more than any other in the history of the game.
Kennedy. Whelan. And again, Whelan scored it! Brilliant goal!
Bob Paisley's 9-year reign as manager of Liverpool ended in fitting style. At Wembley, with a third consecutive League Cup won, he briefly assumed the role of extrovert hero and enjoyed it. But more typical was the picture of his last match at Anfield, with a record 6th entry on the championship trophy. The unassuming Geordie who kept taking the silver, leaving the eloquence to his team.
And again, Souness! What a goal!
Liverpool, predictably, also had the player of the year in Kenny Dalglish, though the best goal he scored came surely in the shirt of Scotland. It's a hard act to follow, but not, as Arsenal's buy, Charlie Nicholas, may reflect, one built in a day. The cup final brought a huge contrast. Big-time Manchester United followed convention. Relegated Brighton took to the skies, and with their manager Jimmy Melia had an aerial pre-match view of Wembley Stadium. By the end of the afternoon, they were very nearly over the moon.
And Case through the middle for Michael Robinson. Can he beat Moran? He can. Can he beat McQueen? He can. There's somebody to his right. It's Smith. And Bailey is saved. What an amazing opportunity for Brighton to win the cup.
Instead, a 2-2 draw and another Wembley replay. On the following Thursday evening, brave Brighton, despite the return from suspension of their captain Steve Foster, came down to earth with a bit of a bump.
Orbiston to Whiteside. Orbiston again, low in for Davis, who's got a good position. Robson! That's the goal that Manchester United wanted from their captain. Oh, McQueen was doing some climbing there, surely. This is Davis. Turned it in for Whiteside.
25 years after the Munich air crash, it seemed right that United had won. 4-0, the largest margin for 8 decades. But the most telling image of '83 was provided by an idealist.
And that's it! Luton Town have survived! David Pleat on the pitch!
We know David likes to see that again and again. Now, in 1983, BBC Television has covered over 50 different sports, including many European championships. And among our guests here tonight, swimmer Adrian Morehouse and top horsewoman Rachel Bayliss, just 2 of our European champions. Well, motor racing was certainly one of those 50-plus sports I mentioned, and John Watson was once again to finish top British performer in the Grand Prix Drivers' Championship.
The championship was dominated by 2 men, Frenchman Alain Prost in his turbocharged Renault and Brazilian Nelson Piquet in his Brabham BMW.
The lights are going on any second now, and away they go.
Alain Prost won 4 Grand Prix and seemed certain to be the first ever French world champion, with dominating drives like the British Grand Prix.
Alain Prost has won.
But then the crash in Holland that destroyed the Frenchman's hopes.
Prost and Piquet come together, and off goes Piquet.
But off too went Prost to give Piquet an opportunity he seized brilliantly. Go! By the start of the European Grand Prix of Brands Hatch, Piquet was just 5 points behind Prost and in magnificent end-of-season form. With the help of the Brabham team's dominance of the pit stops, he closed to within 2 points of Prost.
He takes the checkered flag to win.
And in South Africa, Piquet celebrated his 2nd World Championship. In motorcycle racing, it was Freddie Spencer and Kenny Roberts. 6 wins each and a superb victory for Roberts at Silverstone.
There is an enormous roar of approval and he wheelies over the line.
But Spencer took the title.
Skiing also provided thrilling sport, and no better story in the year than the comeback of the world's finest downhiller, the amazing Austrian Franz Klammer.
This is the crowd. This is the most exciting skier in the world.
Olympic champion 7 years ago, Klammer had been written off for 3 years. But now the World Cup title all hung on the season's final race in Canada, and Klammer breathtakingly made it by 0.02 of a second. Klammer's title for the 5th time. In eventing, Lucinda Green won at badminton for the 5th time. The horse, Regal Rome, and the outcome, a regal presentation. There was no surprise in the boat race. Oxford, with the heaviest crew ever, led from the start and went on, increasing their lead. At Mortlake, they were 4.5 lengths up for their 8th win in a row. The London Marathon, with an estimated 18,000 runners, surpassed itself as the year's great spectacle. The Gurkhas joyfully took part. So did showbiz personalities and just plain folk running for charity. Greta Weitz ran the distance as fast as any woman's ever done, and England's Michael Grattan led the men home.
Well, now in track and field, quite apart from the first World Championships we saw earlier, it's been another vintage year, both at home and abroad. World records being broken no less than 28 times and 15 new British records.
The growing popularity of the sport in this country was emphasised when Britain hosted the European Cup finals at Crystal Palace and welcomed stars like Kritochvilova, who, having proved her strength at 4 and 800 metres, now turned to speed at 200.
Is Cook, the world record holder, leading. Kritochvilova in second place. Kathy Cook is third. Kritochvilova closing. Oh, it's very close.
Close it was, but Kritochvilova had beaten the world record holder. The high jump was an astounding competition, with first Ulrika Mayfart of West Germany beating the world record. But the first record leap in this country for 32 years was soon matched.
Tamara Bykova, second attempt to equal the new world record set by Ulrika Mayfart. Oh, what a magnificent jump.
Kathy Cook reached a record number of medals for Britain in major championships, while the relay team has been in the first 3 at every top event since '78.
And it's gold and silver again. Look at this for a marvellous run. Marley is goer, and after her is Shirley Thomas, and there's yards clear of the Soviet Union team and Bulgaria.
Closer than the World Championships. While in the javelin, Fatima Whitbread proved the Helsinki silver was no fluke, becoming only the second British girl ever to win a European Cup final event. This just underlines what I can do, she said, and the ready smile disguised the pressure. Steve Cram thrives on pressure.
Butter hanging in there, hoping for weakness to show, but it's not showing. And Cram striding away now, just lengthening out, and every stride he takes, he moves an inch further away. Cram, the world champion, wins the European Cup final.
Cram looking so easy. Colin Reitz, third in Finland, ran bravely in the steeplechase, but Maminsky had the finish.
Maminsky of Poland at 31, sprinting hard, and Colin Reitz going after him. Maminsky checks that he's okay, and he's doing an Eamon Coghlan, is Maminsky.
The Poles' pleasure fully justified. But Colin Reitz well satisfied, and so too Peter Elliott, one of 10 runs inside 146. Alan Wells is one of the truly great competitors on the world scene, but the Olympic champion had yet another setback in every sense when the block slipped in the 100 metres. His brilliant recovery placed him second, but then he had to meet Menair, the Olympic champion, at 200.
And it's Borenin that's chasing him, but Wells is heading for the line, and Menair's after him, and Menair's closing the gap, and he's hanging on. Alan Wells is hanging on, and Menair hit the line. Alan Wells thinks he's got it.
Wells was right, and the frustrations of the season forgotten with that precious win over an old and admired rival. In the sprint relay, it was Britain against Italy again, this time Menair against Cameron Sharp.
And a good change there. Cameron Sharp going through the far side, Menair on the near side, and this is going to be a turn-up.
Sharp looking anxious, and Manea's tentative victory sign proved right. Britain has a great tradition at 4x400 metres, and the squad of Akabusi, Cook, Bennett and Brown smashed the all-comers record. But they also had to beat the two teams who were first and second in the World Championship, the USSR and West Germany.
Great Britain closing, and can they pull this off? It's Bill Brown now for Great Britain against the Soviet Union who are battling back, and Brown storming home. The Soviet athlete trying to hold him, and this is going to be a great win for Great Britain.
A win that placed Great Britain fourth in the European Cup final, the same position as the girls. A season that promised so much for Sebastian Coe started well, with new world indoor records at 1,800 metres.
What's the clock? 1:46 the world record, and it has been shattered.
But illness later made Coe a spectator as Sydney Marie smashed Ovette's World 1500 record, a real surprise from someone who hadn't reached the World Championship final. Ovette's emphatic response was just a week later.
And the world record must certainly be on now. Sydney Marie's record, 3:31.24 a week ago, and it must be under threat. No one else in sight. The crowd's going wild, and he's done it.
Ovette very much back after that World Championship disappointment and ready for Cram, the world record holder against the world champion.
Ovette sitting and waiting, and no one does it better. 2:58 at the bell, the time unimportant. The battle for supremacy is now really on. And the bold, front-running Cram has made the break, but hasn't broken Ovette. Ovette in the perfect position. Cram with an elegant stride, and then the controlled power of Steve Ovette in second place. Menacing Cram all the time, and Cram trying to run the finish out of the world 1,500-metre record holder. Ovette showing signs of pain, but Cram hasn't got away. What has Ovette got left? Cram tries to kick again. The gap opens. It's 2 yards. Can Ovette close it? Here he comes on the near side in the perfect position to attack. Cram is still holding that yard, and it's Cram going away again. But Ovette closes once more. But Steve Cram, the champion of the world, proves himself the champion of the world. What a race that was.
Cram so modest in victory, Ovette so generous in defeat. A duel to remember in which both emerged with honour. Some race that, Steve. You must run it in your mind still.
I'm still getting nervous watching it again. It's a marvellous race to have been part of, and it was just a marvellous evening for athletics. It was really good. I think I've never been in a stadium when, you know, all 15 or 16,000 of them stood on their feet and were cheering. You know, and they were all shouting Steve, so it didn't matter who they were shouting for. It was marvellous and so nice afterwards, because Steve accepted defeat really well. Which I think I probably would have done, because it was such a good race, and we both went and did our lap of honour, and it was marvellous.
I remember saying on the commentary, approaching the bell when you took the lead, or when just the point where you did take the lead, this is where only the brave will go. Now, you had planned the race that way, but it takes real effort to take it on at that stage when you've got self-doubt in your mind.
Yes, it's always difficult when you know that somebody's maybe a little bit quicker than you over the last 100 metres or so, and you've got to run it out of them at some stage before that. And it's always difficult to know when to go, and when you do go, you've got to give full commitment, whether that's at 400 or 300 or 200, it's up to you. The sooner the better, really, but the sooner the more it hurts. Yeah. And like you say, it's sometimes a difficult decision to make, and you've just got to be confident that you can do it.
Well, it's not the only thing that's hurt recently, is it? I mean, 6-1, Sunderland beaten yesterday.
Yeah, I'm still in mourning for that, yeah.
Of course, David, he used to warm up in the Sunderland shirt, didn't he? The number 9 shirt, but I believe they got a number 9, didn't they? They took the shirt back, didn't they?
Yeah, they took it back. I've got another one now, though. Well, I think they've got a number 9 anyway. I don't know where he was yesterday, though.
Now, quite apart from the big events you've had this year, the really big event comes next Saturday, doesn't it? You're getting married, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. I get married to Karen on Saturday, and I think that's going to be worse than any of the races I've ever run.
Hey?
I'll certainly be more nervous anyway.
She's watching at home, you better be careful. Anyway, well done, Steve. It's been absolutely marvellous.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Well, now, waiting patiently in Los Angeles is our world decathlon champion. A special welcome, please, for Daley Thompson. Well, Daly, you've done it all, really. World records, Olympic championships, Commonwealth, European and world titles. What's still driving you?
Oh, well, basically the fact that, David, I think that I haven't really reached my full potential because I'm only 25. I probably look 30, but I'm only 25. And, you know, I think that most decathletes get to their best when they're maybe 28, 29, 30. And so I'm just ploughing along till I get to my best, I think.
I remember when I talked to you after you won the Olympic title, you said there are 2 more left I can still win. Do you still feel that way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel that the last 2 or 3 months while I've been away, I'm at least as enthusiastic as I've ever been, and so I've still got all the drive and things, so hopefully I'll still be around in Seoul.
You're clearly able to motivate yourself for the big occasion. I mean, you're one of the supreme competitors. How do you approach that motivation just before a competition?
Well, I've been spending perhaps maybe 11 or 12 months of the year pointing just towards one competition. And I think when you've spent that amount of time with very little competition, that you're really, by the time the competition comes around, you're really hungry, and you just try and give it everything you've got.
Now, Daly, you're talking to us from the Olympic city, Los Angeles. Have you had time to look at the venues and the training centres and the living quarters and so on?
Well, I'm really not that way inclined because what I'd like to do is I'm still very young at heart, and when I go to major games and things, I like to go there when there are a lot of people about so I can get the atmosphere and get really excited, which again helps to bring me up for the big competition.
I notice you haven't lost your accent, your home accent.
Oh, no, and it's quite difficult because everybody here sort of, they all speak American, and it's really difficult because I find that in America we're all friends separated by a common language.
I did hear, actually, you've got an American accent nowadays. You can do it, can't you?
No, I can't because nobody will probably understand me because I can never understand my friends when they talk to me like it. But anyway, when I first meet them first thing in the morning, they say things to me. What it is, bro? What's going on this morning? You know, and silly things. And so, luckily, we just get on with our training and we never have really much time to talk.
Great to see you, Daly. Thanks for joining us and glad it's going well.
Thanks very much, David.
Now, during this past hour or so, we've met all those sportsmen and women who could conceivably win our Personality of the Year award. And in a few minutes from now, the winner's name will be known. But before that climax to our review of the year, let's spare just a little time reliving and enjoying those moments of laughter, shock, or delight that help to add the spice of surprise to the year's solid sporting diet.
Well, that's what they did against Rangers at Pittodrie last week. I think it'll be an excellent game at Easter Road. I don't see Aberdeen being knocked out of the Scottish Cup exactly, but I think it could be a draw.
We've seen that for a long time. Bill Ellie, great danger there.
But what of Bono Moment?
I think you handled him very well. I think, no really serious problem.
How good a jump is?
He wasn't a very good jumper when he first started the match. I think he's got around it now.
We've already had record crowds in this year's Premiership playoffs, and this delicately balanced semi-final has attracted another large attendance.
There are the 13 previous winners of the Race of Champions. The last in 1979, won by the late and great Gilles Villeneuve. The previous 2, won by James Hunt, who, as ever, is with me here.
I can't remember anything about them. I didn't even know I'd won them. Sorry.
The winner, Tommy Carroll, who celebrated in customary, if rather vigorous, style.
He has refereed pretty well, Ken Rowlands, decisively but unobtrusively. I'm sure if he could have seen Rhys Morgan, he'd have sent him off for punching.
He likes everybody to be on the job, and he keeps his concentration. And by doing that, he helps people like Terry Butcher, who's grown up before our eyes, really, unlike the lights which have just gone out now, unless I've gone blind.
Elio De Angelis is in 6th position, and I think he is gaining. Now, and De Angelis stopping. De Angelis flaming his turbos. That's tragic luck.
Look out. They got sticks, too. After somebody in the crowd. O'Reilly's after somebody in the crowd. Oh, this could be bad. Oh, you hate to see this. Man grabs O'Reilly's stick. But the worst thing the players can do is to go in the crowd like this. There goes McMahon.
Now, Tyson, from the members' end. Oh, this man's gone down.
Don't forget that Rosberg has been in and it was singularly unsuccessful. I'm going to stop the stopwatch and the wheel stops now.
We've got a competition now between a bird catcher and an oyster catcher. Ah, yes. Beautifully caught.
And there it was in the back of the net, Brian.
Come on, Peter, get them cleared up.
These all friends of yours?
No.
No, I won't clear the balcony. No, the back
Ray, if we can just interrupt a moment, obviously you're delighted.
Sorry, I didn't realise you were doing an interview.
Thanks, Peter. The rain is pouring down, you must be delighted with that.
Yes, I think so. Obviously, if it keeps like this now, that's all we're worried about.
They say clothes make the man. Well, the clothes are Nicky Lauda's, but the contents are me, Murray Walker, here at Silverstone to achieve a life's ambition. Drive a Formula One Grand Prix car.
You can always rely on Murray. So, we're upon the moment when we announce the BBC Sports Personality of 1983. Now, to present the award, a man who's always been a hero for me personally. His very name is a passport to friendship wherever the game of football is played, in any corner of the globe.
Now it's Charlton, Bobby Charlton, hand on the right. Maybe a shot from Charlton. It's worth trying. Charlton, this could be it again. And here comes Charlton. Oh, great goal!
United have got Benfica on the run now. Sadler, Charlton, a goal! He scored!
Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Charlton.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I feel very humble having been sitting down and watching all those fantastic sporting feats. And it's my tremendous honour to be able to present the winner with his prizes. Obviously, I am well aware that if you are a performer in sport, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of hard work, and a lot of dedication to succeed. And all the people that are here today and that we've been watching with great interest have done all of this. One thing I would like to say before I do present the awards is that we've watched people perform to their utmost and in some cases to almost perfection. And I think it would be wonderful if people throughout the country, and especially youngsters, could take a lead from all these tremendous athletes or tremendous sportsmen, sportswomen, and participate a lot more in sport than they have been doing, so that the standards that these people have given us can be maintained. I'm tremendously honoured. I don't think that I've ever felt so humble. And I would now like to present the awards. If I can mention third place, a man who's now decathlon champion of Europe, the Commonwealth, and this year, the world, Daley Thompson. And now in second place, and for the first time in the history of this programme, we call on two young people who are as near to perfection as they possibly could be in their own particular sport, Jane Torville and Christopher Dean. I'll give it to you later. Many congratulations, anyway. You're absolutely super. And now to the BBC Sports Personality of 1983. We've seen him beat the rest of the world and in the process retain all the true qualities of what we would like in our sportsmen. He's gracious in victory and has continued a great tradition of British athletic achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, the TV Sports Personality for the BBC of 1983, Steve Cram.
I'd like to thank Bobby very much and the BBC for presenting me with the trophy. A special thank you to everybody who voted for me. There's a lot of famous names on here, and I'm especially honoured to be added to it. And I hope my sport athletics is honoured as well. It's a sport which is usually seen as being individual, but there's always a team of people behind somebody like myself. And I would like to thank all those who've helped to get me this far, especially my parents, my coach Jimmy, and my fiancée Karen. 1983 was a marvellous year for me, and I would like to wish everybody, especially those here this evening, a successful 1984. Thank you.
The 1983 BBC Sports Personality, Steve Cram. From all of us in Television Centre London, good night.